Amanda Pelman, it is fabulous to talk to you. A lady of many stories.
Hey, Paul, it's lovely to be back in town and see your beautiful face.
It's quite a surprise seeing you back in town for something so special, the songs of George Michael, done by a whole series of artists, Courtney Act, Natalie Bassingthwaighte, David Campbell, Emma Donovan, Brendan Maclean, Adam Thompson, which I can't wait to hear, Jade MacRae, Gary Pinto and Carmen Smith doing the songs of George Michael with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra at the Sydney Myer Music Bowl. That's tick, 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 tick.
Absolutely huge. And it's a big, fun summer celebration. You know, what better way to do George Michael and freedom than outdoors in Melbourne?
I just read off a shopping list of artists then. George Michael sang every Wham song. He was, the main vocalist on everything that he ever recorded. Why so many artists, for covering off the one voice on all the George Michael records?
I wanted a kind of level of diversity because I think the material is so diverse. You know, the way he wrote, the way he performed, the different eras that he worked in was so incredibly diverse. And I had done this show. I created this show originally in 2016, which was meant to be an outing for the 25th anniversary of Faith. And then, of course, we lost George on the Boxing Day. And we did it with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra in 2017. David Campbell was in that show, Carmen, Jade, and Brendan. Brendan was one of Brendan Maclean's first actual theatrical outings. And I just adored doing the show with such a diverse group of people. And this time I was thrilled that Courtney Act was able to join us. Courtney and Brendan are going to do some very, very crazy, fun, naughty stuff on stage together. And the beautiful Natalie, who I'd worked with before in Rogue Traders a long time ago. So and Emma Donovan's going to knock our socks off with a song that, maybe somebody who was very close to George Michael called Adele might have sung once. It's a very, very diverse catalogue, and it needed to have a very wide range of singers to do it.
And it's not just finding somebody who sings the funky songs, somebody who sings the ballads, somebody who sings the pop. I think even Emma Donovan is going from one extreme to the other with ballads through to the dance numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and we're doing a number where in funky, all the girls are going to do funky and the boys are going to do a bit of a Wham number. It's almost like the Grease, play off together. So we're going to have a lot of fun. It's about being on a big, wide, beautiful outdoor stage in Melbourne and having a lot of fun.
Wham Rap, I think that was the very first Wham single, wasn't it? And that was George and Andrew Ridgeley as pop stars. We don't really have, what I would call that many pop stars in this lineup.
No, I guess not. But who is a male pop star in Australia right now that I would have put in the show? I think these guys cover off all of the material. Brendan is a pop star in his own right. He's just released one of his new single, and they're people that I really think need to be applauded for their diversity, and that's why they're in the cast. The funny thing about the old original Wham songs is that in the latter stage of George's life, he didn't like playing a lot of those songs. Everything She Wants was one of the songs that he always deferred to or went back to. And the way we're doing that in an ensemble piece is going to be really, really dynamic.
Yeah, because there's sort of like a crossover for George from Wham into solo with Careless Whisper. So I think that was originally on a Wham album.
Yeah, Careless Whisper, he was the first song he ever wrote, and he was 17 years old. So the idea that he wrote something of that emotional depth at 17 was pretty extraordinary. And he didn't like the original version, the way it was produced, and he went back and did it again himself, and added the sax solo, and it became obviously the hit single that we know now. I think you can probably guess who I'm going to guess to sing Careless Whisper.
Yeah. Let me talk about Adam Thompson, who's a remarkable singer, a real bona fide rock star in his own band, Chocolate Starfish. But he's also done some incredible tributes to artists over the years. He's done the Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell album, In Excess. He's done, well, if we go back to the original Chocolate Starfish single, You're So Vain, Carly Simon. He's sort of a chameleon in many ways, in that, even though he has the rock persona, he can fit into a different personality, such as a George Michael.
And that's exactly why I wanted him. And I remember when I started to recast this back in July, when we had the idea, I was like, you know what? I want Adam. And a lot of people, to be honest, said to me, who's Adam? Like that they weren't familiar with his work. And I said, this guy's a star. Chocolate Starfish is 30 years now. They're coming up for their big anniversary tour next year. And he does have that range, not just vocally, but he's a performer, consummate performer. And that's what I love about him. He's going to take control of that stage and it'll be enormous.
So you take an Adam Thompson and you sort of sway him a little to the side to fit the George persona. I guess, in many ways with David Campbell, you're going in the opposite direction. You're taking somebody who is, quite the showman and bringing him back into a pop contemporary persona.
Yeah, that's right. And wait till you see the two of them performing together. That's going to be, outrageous. Slightly different than Courtney Act and Brendan Maclean together, but, it's going to still be pretty outrageous.
Right. So with that list that I talked of the artists that are on this, so they're there and they're doing their solo pieces, but then you're intermingling them throughout the show as well.
Yeah, so it's duets and it's ensemble and it's solos and it weaves in and weaves out. And it's straight in. So I think we cover around 30 songs in 2 acts. And then the encore, I'm not letting anyone know what we're doing in the encore, but that's the killer. That's the get up and dance and have fun.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about Emma Donovan doing her bit in the show. And I cannot understand why she isn't one of the biggest stars in Australia at the moment.
Completely agreed. And I'm so thrilled and honoured that she agreed to work with the Melbourne Symphony, because I agree with you. I think she's one of Australia's great stars, and long may she rise. I can't wait to work with her. It's my first time working with her, and I really look forward to this week.
Looking back at the George Michael history, 16th of June 1982 was the date that WHAM Rap was released by WHAM. The same day, Africa by Toto was released. Gloria, Laura Branigan, was in the chart at that point. Men at Work Down Under, Eye of the Tiger, Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll, Dexy's Midnight Runners, Come On Eileen. And Don't You Want Me Baby was the #1 song in the US the week that first WHAM song came out. Just that in itself would make a great playlist, wouldn't it?
It would, yes. Okay, so I'm going to do a 1980s show for you this time next year. But do me a favor and tell me what was the Mushroom Records #1 that we had that week, because I'm sure I had something at #1 in Mushroom.
What I can tell you is Conflicting Emotions by Split Enz was released at that time.
It was indeed, and they played at the Palais in Melbourne, because I remember when I was at, I think I was just started at Mushroom, and I was standing backstage at the Palais with them, and it was one of the first times I had spent time backstage with Michael Gudinski. It was a long time ago.
Well, it wasn't long after all of that was happening in the charts that there was a young Amanda Pelman who co-founded Melodian Records.
God, what year did we start Melodian? Was that 85, I guess, 1985? And our first signings were, Roxas, that had a very young Darren Danielson, who's also in Chocolate Starfish in the band. And then Peter Andre, that I kind of refused to sign, but Molly got the agreement from everybody else. Melodian was amazing. We had a really great run with Indecent Obsession internationally, and of course Peter Andre. Yeah, was immense. So yeah, it was good times.
So, okay, so Melodian's around that time. Why wasn't Kylie on Melodian? Because you were the one who, you stuck your neck on the line. It's well documented now in Stuart Coop's book about Michael Gudinski that you're the one who found Kylie Minogue. Why didn't you put Kylie on Melodian?
No, because it was always going to be Mushroom. Melodeon was in very, very infantile stages then, and I think what we were planning to do with Melodeon was a very different type of sphere than what we wanted to do with Kylie. And Mushroom was the home of the hits. You know, when the first day she ever came in for a meeting with her father Ron, and I sat her down with Gary Ashley and gave Gary the script and said, you know, we've got to impress these people. I really want this girl on the label. It was about putting her on a label that had already been a bona fide hit-making factory, even before the Stockake and Waterman hit-making factory came into the equation. So I think that's clearly what attracted her and her dad, who was looking after her at the time, to the label. That's why we were Mushroom was number one.
Well, I guess you're celebrating along with Mushroom, you know, because Melodeon was all part of the 50-year history. So congratulations on that part of the career. A more
Thank
recent
you.
part of the career, we lost the great Michael Lang, who was the co-founder of Woodstock recently. You were working with Michael on what could have been another Woodstock. You know, what a great loss, firstly, with what happened there. And what went wrong in your eyes with the what would have been the last Woodstock?
Unfortunately for Woodstock 50, we ended up with the wrong partners. And in some respects, that was a history of Michael's life. He chose a lot of wrong partners through his career. But we were funded by a company called Dentsu, who were a Japanese advertising company. And they wanted to buy the brand and develop it way beyond what we were doing with Mushroom, with Woodstock 50. And rue the day. It was extraordinary. The day we found out that they were going to cancel the concert, and they made a unilateral decision to cancel the concert without the rights. And we went to court. We won the court battle, but by the time that was over, it was just literally physically too late for us to mount anything. And we already had cast it. You know, I'd spent, let me get this right, $22.3 million on talent. So, you know, we had Miley Cyrus and we had Jay-Z and we had the Killers and we had, you know, the lineup was absolutely extraordinary. But, you know, it just couldn't be recovered after Dentsu pulled out. So it was a very, very difficult and tragic time for us. And then, of course, we lost Michael very soon after that.
What about artists from the original Woodstock? Who would have been there?
I had convinced David Crosby to do it.
Wow.
There was a, you know, bit of a gunfight at the OK Corral with Mr. Lang on that because he didn't want anybody from the CSNY team, but I convinced him to put Cros on him, and we were going to have Cros, and of course now we've sadly lost him. And Fogerty was at our launch. We did our launch on March the 19th at Electric Ladyland Studios, and John came and played, and so there was a couple of the old guard that were going to be there, and Carlos. You know.
Amanda, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Paul. See you on Saturday night at George Michael at the My Music Bowl.